Hello, my name is Susanna Arambula, and I am an undergraduate student at San Diego State University. I am studying psychology. I am currently employed as a victim advocate specialist. I was just given this position, blessed with this position, about a month ago. I was interning at the Imperial County District Attorney's Office with a victim witness, and after a year of interning and volunteering and just bugging of when I can apply and gaining more experience, I was able to get hired as a victim advocate. So, a little about my job description. I work with victims of crime in my county, victims of all crime. I help them with court assistance when there is a criminal case against a defendant and they were listed as a victim of the case. A lot of the victims I see are victims of domestic violence, rape, stalking, abuse, assault, robbery, all crimes. The ones I see the most are domestic violence cases and sex crime cases. So a lot of sexual assault. It's a heavy topic and it's not for everyone, but it's what I'm passionate about. It's why I'm going to school studying psychology. I want to specialize in studying trauma, hopefully to get my master's in forensic psychology to understand victim trauma more and do more research on, effects and rates and statistics on domestic violence and sexual assault. Um, I am currently doing a podcast episode, my first podcast episode. So please excuse me if I stutter, if I say a lot, if I ramble or word vomit. I like to say a lot because I tend to do that, but this is something I'm really passionate about. And I really want this episode to feel natural, kind of feel like you're just talking in a real life interview with someone. I do work with, victims of sensitive crime, and the topic I chose today correlates with that. Today is April 30th. So today is National Sexual Assault Awareness Day. April was Sexual Assault Awareness Month. The color for awareness is teal. So I was wearing a teal shirt all day today at work and teal earrings. And I had a pin, but I gave it to my coworker because she wasn't wearing teal. But yeah, so without further ado, I'll go ahead and discuss my topic, the research that I found. Really interesting research. It involves ambivalent sexism, intimate partner violence, sexual exploitation, childhood trauma, specifically how violence against women is correlated with lower income, more marginalized, sensitive groups of women, such as Black women. They are statistically more subjected to violence, to sexual exploitation, to risk of getting STIs due to sexual abuse. We're going to talk about ambivalent sexist attitudes and how that contributes to intimate partner violence, how that contributes to the over sexualization of women, and how that in itself, becomes sexual exploitation, becomes sexual violence, becomes any sort of violence and harsh, negative attitudes towards women that inherently put us women at harm. Before I get into it, you see all these women who are against the patriarchy, who are strong, who stand up for themselves. And they are seen as mean. They are called names. They are not feminine. And as a society, why have we not come to a point where a woman protecting herself for standing her ground is her not being feminine? So at what point where is it where, we're trying to keep ourselves safe, and does that mean we have to, completely allow ourselves to accept violence against us? So with these studies, it just proves how years of patriarchal beliefs, ambivalent sexist attitudes, which I'll discuss the definition right now, how media contributions, how dichotomies such as the Madonna whore dichotomy all contribute to violence against women, to harsh attitudes against women. It's not just about sexist remarks. It's not just about, you know, believing women should stay in the kitchen. You know what I mean? It's safety. It's life or death, you know? And especially with intimate partner dating and intimate partner violence. See, there I am stumbling again, excuse me. It's not just with intimate partner violence, you know, like women have to be careful. And I mean, all people have to be careful. But if we're going to look at the statistics of it, we're going to see how marginalized groups of women are statistically more likely to be a victim of violence, are statistically more likely to catch an STI because of lack of resources, because of higher risks to childhood sexual abuse, because of higher risk to stranger violence. You know, this is an issue that's still affecting women today. And even at my job, I see the statistics rolling in of just, you know, lower income women, women in more marginalized communities, enduring abuse more because they feel that they can't get out, because their whole lives they've been given these prejudiced attitudes, harsh attitudes against them, and they're not given the help that they need that a lot of people with privilege have. So, without further ado, I hope I don't word vomit too much. I'm gonna get comfy. It's outside. It's a really beautiful day. And I hope that whoever gets to watch this is having a great day and gets to learn a thing or two, because I learned a lot. And I thought I knew a lot about these topics, and I don't. And it always shocks me when I learn more. I love to learn more. So I have 5 articles and they all connect. Even if you think that they don't all connect together, they really do. And you will see that the same wording, the same problems, the same rates, they're all going to come back within these 5 articles. So the first article I'm going to discuss mostly just discusses ambivalent sexism. So the title of it is Ambivalent Sexism, Alcohol Use, and Intimate Partner Violence. So we will be focusing on the correlation between ambivalent sexist attitudes, alcohol use, and how it correlates with intimate partner violence. Um, this article was conducted by Claire Renzetti, Kelly Lynch, and Nathan DeWall. Second article that I'll be connecting to this topic involves Black media stereotypes. It is titled Subordinates, Sex Objects, or Sapphires, Investigating Contributions of Media Use to Black Students' Femininity, Ideologies, and Stereotypes About Black Women. This article was conducted by Margan Gerald, Monique Ward, Lolita Moss, Kia Thomas, and Kyla Fletcher. Third article involves impulsivity post child sexual abuse. This one is titled Impulsivity Mediates the Link Between Childhood Sexual Abuse and Juvenile Incarceration Among Low Income African American Women. This was done by Catherine E. Harris, Sierra Carter, Abigail Powers, and Beck Bradley. Fourth article, we talk about Madonna whore dichotomy, which is something I love to mention a lot, which is something that's not talked about a lot. Titled The Madonna Whore Dichotomy, Men Who Perceive Women's Nurturance and Sexuality as Mutually Exclusive, Endorse Patriarchy, and Show Lower Relationship Satisfaction. This was conducted by Orly Barraquet, Rodham Kehalon, Niraj Schnabel, and Peter Glick. Last article I will be discussing and talks about sexual trauma and effects on sexual health. It is titled The Effects of Trauma, Violence, and Stress on Sexual Health Outcomes Among Female Clinic Clients in a Small Northeastern U.S. Urban Center, Women Health Reports. This was conducted by Natalie M. LeBlanc, Camila Alexander, Sierra Carter, Hugh Creon, Laidria Ingram, James Kobe, and James McCohen. So without further ado, we'll get into it. So, in regards to sexual exploitation, intimate partner violence, childhood trauma, and any other sort of trauma, they all can fall under this category involving women. All are the direct cause of ambivalent sexism. So, ambivalent sexism is separated by or goes into hostile sexism and benevolent sexism. It is characterized by these attitudes. It is characterized by active elements that push traditional gender roles against women. And when they don't follow through with those traditional gender roles, it often promotes negative attitudes towards those women they don't feel fits in that box of tradition. So there's hostile sexism, which has more of sees women more as manipulative and aggressive. Therefore, it is defensive towards women. Therefore, men will have defensive attitudes towards women. So if a woman is more independent, she's career focused, perhaps she doesn't want kids, she doesn't want to get married, then to those who promote ambivalent sexism, she is not feminine enough and she is subjected to more harsher attitudes and disrespect. So it's very out there. You outwardly don't like independent women. You outwardly don't like women. You outwardly see women as inferior, and you're outwardly saying that. That's how I see it. With benevolent sexism, I like to see that one as kind of under the rug sexism. This is something that I see a lot in younger men. So it sees women as pure docile creatures. That's the attitudes that benevolent sexism is, that should be taken care of. However, this leads to negative attitudes towards women because if you're seeing women as these docile damsel in distress, again, it ties back into ambivalent sexism, where if she doesn't fall under that category, then she doesn't deserve your respect. She's not a real woman, you know? So it often does a lot of apologists for abusers, for rapists, for those who are actively misogynistic. Those people who apologize for those people are often having benevolent sexist attitudes. So, in regards to ambivalent sexism, now that we got the definition, now that we understand benevolent and hostile, how they both connect under the umbrella term of ambivalent sexism, we'll get into the study done by Renzetti involving ambivalent sexism, alcohol use, and intimate partner violence. So this study is finding that connection. This study was used with a method of 255 men. All of them were older, living in the United States, and they were all currently in heterosexual relationships that were either lasting for 1 year or longer. Um, the study was conducted with a survey and a scale of how true, not true, just to get a feel of how these men felt about women. This study calculated how often the men drink, how often they partook in violent attitudes towards past partners, towards their current partners, if these violent attitudes were more present with the presence of alcohol in their system, or perhaps if they weren't. So, 19.6% of the men perpetrated violent behavior towards their partner within the last 12 months. So, the hypothesis, this was after they had said that they did drink alcohol quite frequently during the week. The hypothesis that greater alcohol use in men would lead to higher rates of IPV was found to be true. An interesting thing that was found to be true was that the IPV, intimate partner violence perpetration, was also highly correlated with aggression towards women who challenge any traditional feminine roles. So, taken together, alcohol consumption and the challenge of challenging traditional gender roles, these increase the risk of their partners experiencing IPV. So, with this study, I think that this is a big not wake up, but a big, indicator that there needs to be more education on how alcohol consumption um, and alcoholics correlate with abuse. How sexism, how wanting a traditional gender role, a stay at home wife, perhaps, she doesn't want to be stay at home. There needs to be more education towards men that their partner can have a choice in what she wants to do. And just because she is dating you doesn't mean that she's living your life, you know? Um, these rates of violence are serious, and we're going to see them more throughout these articles. So there's the finding. I thought it was really interesting. Um, we're going to get into also how, let's see, Black media contributions. So, with the Black media contributions, with the study with Gerald and Ward, Moss, Thomas, and Fletcher, this study was to discuss the contributions of the media to stereotypes involving Jezebel, Sapphire, and strong woman stereotype. So we're going to go and we're going to use our friend Google so I can get the proper definition and wording. I know, but a Jezebel, if you haven't heard that term before, is a woman who deceives and can get what she wants with the power of seduction, with swooning men. If you've ever heard someone else call a woman a Jezebel, it's not a very nice word. Some people might take it as a compliment. I mean, if you want to be called seductive, but it's supposed to call a woman seductively manipulative in that sense. So immoral, manipulative, potentially controlling woman. So it's derogatory. There's also the sapphire, and again, these stereotypes are when in discussion of this article, these stereotypes involve Black women and how they are promoted in media. So sapphire caricature of a Black woman is supposed to be saying that she's loud, she's rude, she's too much, she's overbearing. It's supposed to go into um, suggesting that Black women are angry and loud. Then there's a strong Black woman. That stereotype, strong woman stereotype, that one involves, putting Black women in the stereotype that they're strong, they're independent, they don't need anyone. And again, with these stereotypes, no stereotype is good. Um, we in humanity, we as humans are not meant to mentally box people into categories and assume that one race, one population, one gender, one group of people are all a certain way, or they all should fall into this category, and when they don't fall into that category, that they are not accepted. So in no way are these stereotypes acceptable, and we will see how they lead to sexualization and sexual exploitation of Black women. So within this study, they conducted a study of Black and African American undergraduate students, 404 to be exact. Both of it was male and female. I believe majority were female, around 70%. They wanted to study, so they did 3 sets of questionnaires. The first set involved let's see, frequent movie. See, one of the sets involved frequent visits to the movie theater, so it was current movie consumption, keeping up with modern cinema. Male and female magazine consumption, so consumption of magazines that were targeted towards males and consumption of magazines that were targeted towards females. And there's also a measure to study consumption of music videos and music consumption, specifically music videos and music video portrayal of Black women. So it was fine that there was a higher consumption of media and perceived realism. To clarify, perceived realism involves media consumption when you believe that what is posted out in the media, what is getting views, what is in the tabloids, what is in social media, movies, music videos, songs, their lyrics, taking that perceived realism is what you are perceiving is real. That is dangerous, especially, for example, in this study you'll see how with the music videos, any portrayal of a sexual Black woman, if that is seen as perceived realism, there's an expectation that Black women are these over sexualized objects that can be treated that way, that can um, be degraded in the way that they are in these certain music videos. So going back to the article, it was found that there was a higher consumption of media and perceived realism, and it was connected to stereotypes held against Black women, such as Jezebel Sapphire and the strong Black woman. So those stereotypes that I was talking about, the belief in them and the perceived realism in them was found to be directly correlated with media consumption from the college students. So the findings show that actually that those who consumed more women magazines led to more of an acceptance of the Jezebel and the strong Black woman stereotype. So the Jezebel, remember, that's the promiscuous, manipulative, gets what she wants stereotype, and the strong Black woman stereotype, which is the more like independent, strong stereotype. With the consumption of males magazines, it did support stereotypes over sexualizing Black women. So that was the Jezebel and Sapphire. Those stereotypes are typically more known to sexualize Black women. So with the findings of this article, we see that more marginalized groups, such as African American and Black citizens, specifically women, they are targeted more um, with perceived realism because of stereotypes, that these stereotypes are being perceived as real. And that's dangerous because that leads to over sexualization, that leads to sexual exploitation, that leads to a higher risk of intimate partner violence, of sexual violence. So this shows that Black women are at more of a risk for hypersexualization due to being placed in these stereotypes. This connects with ambivalent sexism. As we discussed with ambivalent sexism, it's about putting women in a certain box and rejecting those women who don't fall under that box, telling women you're supposed to be like this and accept it. So we're going to go into the third article, which involves the impulsivity with child sexual abuse. Specifically, this is involving a study that was involving more low-income African American women and their impulsivity post being victimized of childhood sexual abuse. So in this study, it was participants that were African American. They were 18 and older. They were not actively psychotic. They had the ability to give informed consent. And 19% of the participants did not receive a high school diploma. Within the questions being asked, participants were asked to answer each question on a scale from 1, which was never true, and 5 to very often true. The higher on the scale meant that there was more of a presence of childhood sexual abuse in their life. So results showed that those who received lower educations scored a higher score that correlated with juvenile incarceration. Um, it showed that low income households also correlated with juvenile incarceration. This goes back to my point in the beginning that I made that communities with lower resources um, have more of a risk of trauma, have more of a risk of dealing with juvenile or adult incarceration due to these lack of resources, due to stereotypes preventing them to see beyond their perceived realism of themselves. And um, you know they don't have access to resources that people in privileged communities get, so there is a higher risk. um, this also showed that there are results with emotional dysregulation and justice involved youth. So um, it was also found that those who had lived in lower income African American communities were more at risk for childhood sexual abuse. It was also found that childhood sexual abuse correlates with juvenile incarceration. So it correlates with impulsivity. It correlates because impulsivity was found to be a coping mechanism post childhood sexual abuse. After enduring such a victimization, the results show and prove that those who are victimized of childhood sexual abuse are highly more at risk to more impulsive behavior, to more risky behavior, to becoming more overly sexualized themselves, because that is a certain coping mechanism. And with lack of resources such as therapy, such as receiving certain benefits that can help them cope, They go down a path that they shouldn't have to go down. So, moving on, we're going to move on to the Madonna Whore complex. With this study, so the Madonna Whore complex, if you don't know what it means, um, or Madonna Whore complex, or Madonna Whore dichotomy, however you've heard it, um, it is defined as a patriarchal mindset that categorizes women as good or bad. Good women being associated with characteristics such as pure, innocent, chaste. The good woman is the woman that you want to marry, the one that's too pure to even think about. You can't even think about her doing sex, about her in a sexual way. Bad women, however, you can think about them in a sexual way, because bad women are categorized as promiscuous. They are categorized as seductive whores. They are categorized as the women that you do have sex with, but not the women that you're going to make a wife, not the women that you're going to make a mom. With the good women, those are the women that you correlate characteristics, oftentimes with your own mother. This Madonna whore dichotomy correlates with studies done by Sigmund Freud, um, controversial or not. But I know in the psychology world, a lot of us don't like him, but a lot of us do see his points in some things. And when it comes to sexism, some of his statements make sense. But anyways, so now that we get that the Madonna whore dichotomy places women as good or bad, chaste, promiscuous, innocent, pure, with seductive, and a whore, we're going to go into the study. So it is a harmful contributor to stereotypes against women. I would say that the Madonna whore dichotomy also connects with a study done about Black media consumption. So Black media often promotes portraying Black women as Madonna whores, over sexualizing them. That's not good, because over sexualization, as I've said, will perpetrate more violence against women. So the dichotomy is harmful. It not only limits them from respect, but it limits them from sexual exploration and enforces aggressive behavior towards women who are viewed as anything going against patriarchal gender roles. It does restrict women from intimate relationships and that sexual freedom that women should have, just as men have sexual freedom. Um, so this involved 111 Israeli men who were between the ages of 18 and 63 years old. The men were given a survey item. The items contained 12 items. The statements they were given were based on themes involving women's sexuality, nurturance, and what they considered to be negative traits in women. So, after evaluating the results, it was found that the presence of ambivalent sexual sexism, sexual objectification, and double standards were held within the beliefs correlating with the Madonna whore dichotomy. So men actually, something very interesting in this study was that men who endorsed the Madonna whore dichotomy were more likely to be less sexually satisfied in their own relationships. Now, like I said, those who endorse the Madonna whore dichotomy, they categorize women as good and bad. If you're a man and you endorse this dichotomy, you believe that the woman that you are going to marry, you can't think of her in a sexual way. You can't think of her as a woman you're going to hook up with often. So you separate sex from romance. And in your romantic relationship, you're not going to be sexually satisfied because, you forced yourself to see through the patriarchy's eyes and saw your wife as someone who wasn't sexually, um, what's it called? Wasn't sexual, wasn't intimate. You can't be intimate with her because you don't see her that way, because sex is bad, according to the Madonna whore dichotomy. This often reminds me, actually, sorry to go off topic, but it reminds me of Priscilla Presley's book, when she said that Elvis refused to have sex with her after she had given birth because he couldn't do that to a mother. So that is an example of believing in the Madonna whore dichotomy. There was a finding of endorsement of the Madonna whore complex correlating with social dominance orientation, benevolent sexism, hostile sexism, sexual objectification, and sexual double standards. We see the sexual double standards. So this is because, again, repeating myself, men who separate women and support this dichotomy separate women from being sexual partners and promiscuous, and they separate the ones that are not Madonna whores as romantic partners and nurturing. So after reviewing the study, I saw that this is a very dangerous dichotomy. This is a very dangerous outcome of prejudice and patriarchal views. So lastly, we're going to go into sexual trauma and correlating it with sexual health effects. Now, I'm reviewing this article and discussing sexual health effects because, like I said before, those who come from more marginalized sex sensitive groups and who happen to be victimized of sexual violence or intimate partner violence have less resources. And if with especially victims of sexual violence, lack of resources can be more of a potential risk to developing and living with STIs, which is dangerous and sometimes can become deadly if untreated, such as STIs as like AIDS and HIV virus. So, to further connect the violent and detrimental effects of on marginalized women's safety, um, we're going to discuss the study conducted by LeBlanc and the other researchers are part of the effects of trauma and violence with small clinics. Excuse me, there's mosquitoes everywhere outside. But this study used 279 ethno-racially diverse people from the United States. Specifically, this study correlates and investigates women's experiences of trauma, childhood trauma, stress, intimate partner violence, and changes in sexual health and behavior post trauma. Participants were given a childhood trauma questionnaire containing 28 items. Um, with this questionnaire, it was given questions that would measure their experience with trauma, their experience with exposure to STIs, and other sexual health risks. So, 70% of women in the study reported lifetime experience of intimate partner violence. 24% of those women had reported that they were currently experiencing intimate partner violence with their current partner. This sample additionally found that with this percentage, they were more correlated with developing STIs and more correlated with experiencing childhood trauma. Another finding in the study was that those who reported Black identity had a higher rates and higher risk of developing STIs due to childhood sexual trauma. It was found that those who identify with as being African American or Black were subjected more to childhood sexual trauma. So, after reading the study and connecting it with all these previous reports aforementioned, it is clear that IPV, sexual trauma, childhood trauma, and violence are higher in numbers with marginalized groups. And even with this last study, it is concerning to know that there are higher statistics in STIs post childhood sexual abuse. Um, this study proves that within the Black community, that there is more of a risk of high sexual abuse, and this correlates also with stereotypes against Black women too, over sexualizing them, over sexualizing young Black women, and this is something that in society um, puts them at risks to perpetrators that over sexualize women and will subject them to violence. Um, this needs to strike up a conversation that we cannot condone these violent thoughts. We cannot condone these harmful stereotypes that promote these thoughts of separating women from being sexual beings and separating them from being the docile, motherly, nurturing beings. All women are women. We need to create more awareness that a woman can have her own freedom, can be who she wants, can be sexually active, can choose not to be sexually active, and shouldn't have to be subjected to disrespect, shouldn't have to be subjected to a risk of higher intimate partner violence. We also see a correlation of higher intimate partner violence not only with ambivalent sexist attitudes, but with alcohol consumption. So if there is more awareness on to men's mental health and controlling their substance intake, as well as controlling their own negative emotions towards women. I believe that with awareness, we can help to go towards a future that will fix this problem. Um, with these topics, I am a strong believer, to get personal, that women are hated on, and that marginalized groups of women are hated on, that Black women are hated on, because of these stereotypes, because of ambivalent attitudes, because there is benevolent sexism that wants to put women in a box of the perfect woman being a docile, innocent, pure, chaste woman, when that is not the case. When, in order to receive respect, a woman must hide her sexuality, or else she may be at risk for violence. And I am scared to have a daughter and put her in a world like that. After reading these studies, it just makes you concerned. But there is hope, and we are going towards a better future. I hope you enjoyed me rambling and word vomiting about this topic, and I hope that you're having a great day. And I hope that this gives more thought into awareness about IPV, about sexual assault, about sexist prejudice attitudes, and how that directly correlates with violent thoughts against women. Um, because protecting women and standing up for women's rights shouldn't have to be something that is going against um, traditional gender roles or seen as something that is rebellious. It is just simply asking for rights. It is simply asking for safety. So if you made it through this whole thing of me rambling, I really thank you. As you can see, I think I started when the sun was bright and now it's coming down. So I think that is my cue to close this off. I hope you're having a great day. And today's April 30th, the last day of the month. So I hope that tomorrow, um, that May, our new month, will give you a lot of blessings and joy. Thank you for watching.